Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl Toddrea and
Tabitha.
welcome to another episode of The Sister. And here we are serving injured souls to encourage, rejuvenate, and strengthen your spiritual healing, one seed, one question, and one conversation at a time. So listen, today we have a really, really, really rough topic that we're going to talk about. And we have attempted to have this conversation amongst ourselves on many occasions, and it hasn't really turned out all that great. So, as real as we can, we're going to attempt the conversation again with you guys. So, Sissy,
Yes.
we have been talking about how we maintain our belief in God through our inability to give birth
Yes.
and to try to elaborate. So for me, as you guys know, I have two children of my own that I birthed, but I have been dealing with not being able to have more children. And Sissy, for you?
And for me, I've been having trouble giving birth periods. I have had two miscarriages and it's been rough. So I haven't had that ability to have any children.
Okay, so for me, I know that I remember when, because of medical issues, I remember that even though I've already had two children, I remember that day like it was yesterday when I went to the doctor. And because of medical issues, he was like, okay, Tadria, we've got to switch some things up. You're at the point where if you're going to have another baby, you need to do it now, right?
Right.
And he gave me a timeline to get pregnant. And it seemed like nothing was working. And in the process of the timeline that the doctor gave me to conceive, there was a young lady that I worked with at the time that was pregnant. So I found myself low key resenting her,
Yeah.
right? So for you, how does that feel seeing women around you that are pregnant? Does that bother you? Has it ever bothered you? And does it still bother you?
Well, this, like I said, this is a very hard subject. Yes, it bothers me. Now in this state, it doesn't bother me as much, but it has. To see someone that God has blessed to give birth and they pregnant and they, happy and they jolly, and I cannot do the same. I used to be so envy. I know it's a bad word probably, but I used to be very envy or very, I felt not like a woman, like I couldn't bear children, not understanding why. As I have had medical issues as well. And when the doctor told me I had endometriosis, young way, you need to go ahead and have a baby, and that can kind of cause that to, you get pregnant, it can kind of cause the endometriosis to go away, but it never really happened for me. So yes, seeing children or seeing women that's pregnant is very hard. Now it's not as hard, but yes, it was difficult, very difficult.
So, okay, and I appreciate you sharing that, especially with um, on a forum like this where who knows who is listening to us, but maybe something we say this evening could help somebody that's possibly still in the situation, or maybe something we say can, kind of give another young lady the strength to keep going, or the strength to just know that and understand that it's okay,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me about um tell me about the first time you felt inadequate.
The first time I felt inadequate with the birthing portion was when I actually got pregnant. I was so excited, super, 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 super excited. And 6 weeks into my pregnancy, I lost the baby. And I felt very alone. I felt not worthy. I felt, oh my God, as a woman, how can I not be able to produce or to give birth? Um, to give birth. And I know my husband wanted one at the time. I was married to Timothy. He wanted one. And so I just felt so alone. And I often ask the question, God, you bless Hannah and Hannah was able to give and she prayed and you granted her that, but I prayed and you didn't grant me that. But I believe that he also gave me a healing within that, although it was painful. And it didn't happen overnight, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's painful. God also showed me that there are kids that still need you.
Hmm.
That is the reason why I take God parenting so serious, and nieces and nephews that I could um, be a part of their life as a mother. But I think that without that foundation for me, that was the first time. Then the second time, I was just done with. I was like, oh, this can't be. Why am I doing this? But
Mm-hmm.
time, it took a lot of time, a lot of searching, because for me, I felt like I couldn't give at the time my husband something that I know he wanted. But
Oh
because
wow.
he knew my heart, he wasn't that one to be, well, I don't want to be with you, but he was that more one that we in this together. So it takes that also that partner that you as a woman or we as women that go through those things, but our partners needs to be there to support as well. Because although we hurt, they hurt. So especially if they want one and it's dear to them as well.
Oh wow. That's really good, Sissy. So how did you maintain or how have you been able to maintain your belief in the God that we serve and the God that we trust, knowing this is something that you can't do or this is something that you want so bad, and knowing God the way that we know God and understanding, like Hannah prayed in First Samuel verse 11, it says that she made a vow and said, "O Lord of hosts, you will." I'm sorry, no glasses. "O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will you give your maidservant a son? Then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, excuse me, and a razor shall never come on his head." So we understand how Hannah fasted and she went to the throne and she was like, "Okay, God." Basically, Hannah was like, "Listen, this is what it is, God, and I don't know any other way to do it. I don't know any other way to serve you. I don't know any other way to trust you. But God, at this point, this man is standing at the gate and he think I'm drunk because I'm praying and I'm giving you all of me. I'm giving you everything I got because God, all I want is a son. And if you give me what I'm asking you for, you can have him back. Just allow me the ability to give birth." So we all know Hannah's prayer. We all know how she went to the throne and she was like, "Okay, God, this is what it is." How are you able to maintain the belief that you have and the trust that you have for God and the need, understanding, God, you did it for Hannah, and your word says that you're no respecter of person, but I can't do it. How have you
Wow.
been able to maintain?
That's a good one. It was hard because I that was always one of my prayers is that, Dad, you bless Hannah. She prayed. I prayed. We prayed and we asked you to open my womb so that I can birth a child. and you didn't give me the opportunity, but you gave it to Hannah. So I had to, at some point in my life, it grew me up. And when I say
Hmm.
grew up, I'm not even talking from a perspective of um in just in the physical world, and even in the spiritual realm, because I had to face both. Because in the physical, I see people walking around and they giving birth and doing this and doing that. In the spiritual realm, my heart was so hurt that I had to really pull on the word that He would never leave me nor forsake me, and or Jeremiah
Hmm.
29:11, that His plan for my life is good, not of evil. But it took, and paraphrasing that, because it's more than that, but it was more of actually standing on the rock that knew me more than my own self.
Hmm.
I believed at that time, I just didn't understand why. Just why. But a lot of my writings into today's life stems from just that. The first one of the places I first wrote was "Where's Your Faith?" So it was coming from, if I'm dealing with this particular issue, my how can I have so much faith in a God that can't give me what I just desire?
Hmm. That's good, Sissy.
So I had
So,
to go ahead. Hmm.
so I remember like thinking back, and our stories aren't the same because I I have been able to give birth to two young men, you
Yeah.
know, two handsome, strong young men. And I feel like, on one hand, I feel like, okay, you've been able to experience what it's like to give birth, and you being selfish because you want to do it again. But on the other hand, I'm like, okay, well, God, your word says be fruitful and multiply. So why won't you let me be fruitful and multiply? Right. And I remember a couple of years ago, well, actually, it's been more than a couple of years ago, but I remember I was coming up on one of my birthdays, and I remember I made a post on Facebook, and I was like, okay, so there was something that I've always wanted, that there was something that I wanted, and I'm paraphrasing the post, but it went along the lines of there is something that I wanted, and I never really took the time to ask God if I could have it. But
Hmm.
I felt like because it was something that I wanted, that God should have just gave it to me because I misunderstood or I misinterpreted the word of God where it says that God gives us the desires of our heart. So I felt like, God, if you're giving me the desire of my heart, and the desire of my heart is to birth another child, you gave me the desire, so why won't you give me the desire? Right?
Right. Right.
So I got to the point where I wasn't able to, and I love babies. I love other people's children, especially those that you can like take and spoil and then give back. But it got to the point where I went through a season of my life where I wouldn't even play with babies. I wouldn't
Mm,
even touch a baby. I know you remember that because when
yeah.
we were in church, everybody brought their baby to me because they wanted the baby to go to sleep in church. So it was like I just had to touch, so I can just put everybody's baby to sleep, and then they knew that they were safe. So I went through a season where I didn't want to look at a baby. I didn't want to touch a baby because I was angry. And I
Yes.
couldn't really understand what my anger was actually stemming from because I was given the ability, I was honored enough, graced enough to give birth to two. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, God, give me three. Give me another one. Right. And some days it's like, okay, knowing what I know now and understanding the health issues that I had, I see now that my inability to conceive probably saved my life.
Wow.
Because had I been able to give birth in that season, it probably would have killed me.
Oh, Jesus.
because I didn't understand the level of the medical issues that I was actually dealing with. So sometimes our inability to do something could be God's way of saving us.
Oh, that's so good.
So we may not understand it and we may not like it and we may be extremely envious of it, but do we come back and just say, okay, God, I no longer trust you because you didn't give me what would have killed me. So for
Mm,
that, I don't trust you. But
wow.
God, you love me enough to not allow me to do this, so I still have life.
Yes. Yes.
So how is it that we're so eager to resent God and what it is He doesn't allow us, and we refuse to accept the fact that because we want what we want
Hmm.
in our own level of self, that it may actually kill us if He allows us to have it.
Wow. That's good.
So knowing what we know now, God bless you, because this is a struggle. I'm fighting tears, right? Trying to through this whole conversation. So it's like knowing what we know now. Do you still believe it's possible to still give birth, even knowing what we know now, where we are now?
Is it possible for me to give birth? Us to give birth?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think definitely it's possible, but if we look on this on a flip side, from a physical perspective, I think that in this season, it is not for me to physically give birth. But one of the things that I wanted, and you said something that was so good, that sometimes we want something that may kill us, and God knows best. But I think that in this season, my birthing is coming from my dreams and visions.
Hmm.
And because I understand that in the physical realm, that God has not given me that ability to birth children, I believe that He's given me the ability to birth my visions and dreams that He's given unto me. So although my mind tells me, oh my God, I can't, or I couldn't, I also understand from a spiritual perspective that He has something else in store for me that I must continue to birth from a spiritual perspective.
Hmm. That's good. Listen, I might send you an offering when we finish this. Girl,
Yeah.
that was good. That just blessed my whole soul. Okay, so with that being said, from a spiritual perspective, we understand the different levels of birth.
Yes.
We understand that birth is not always mother to child.
Right.
Non believers, on the other hand, may only see birth as mother to child. How would you convince a non believer that there's more to birth? How would you midwife that?
That's a different one. I'm gonna let you answer that, Sissy, because that's a good question. You answered that one. That is really good.
So I thought you was gonna answer that one because I was holding back tears. Okay, so me personally, how I would help a non-believer understand that there's more to birth than just mother to child is I would try to understand, okay, what is it that you like to do? What are
Yeah.
you good at?
Hmm.
What can you do? It's like, you know how you take those job ready quizzes to find out what you're good at and what you like to do and that thing that you like and the thing that you have a passion for that you would wake up to every day with a smile that you don't have that you wouldn't necessarily have to get paid for.
Right.
So I think if I was talking to a non-believer about the inability to give birth, but helping them understand that just because you may not be able to birth mother to child you still have the ability to birth.
Correct.
You can birth that business, you can
Yes.
birth that friendship,
That's
you
it.
can nurture that passion that you have. You
That's
still have the ability to be there for somebody else. You can be a mentor. I mean, it can be anything. So birthing is not just, it doesn't stop. And I'm pretty sure there's so many other levels to giving birth
right.
than just mother to child. Because if
Right.
you think about it, we in the middle, the two of us right now, without going into a whole lot of detail right now until God says differently. But if you think about the two of us, literally, we on the birthing table.
Yes. Oh my. Yes, we are.
We
Yes.
on the birthing table right now. And the midwife is like, push, and we both standing there like, no, no,
Mm.
no.
Yeah.
So there's so much more to giving birth than the physical aspect of mother to child, right? So
Absolutely.
when it comes to, in your opinion, oh, so in your opinion, when it comes to giving birth, do you think non-believers can be rebirth?
Oh my. Absolutely.
What do
I
you think that looks like?
I think that when we say, can a non-believer be rebirthed, when I hear that, and I got a little excited because when you hear that, that's going from one extreme to the other. That's where it comes in at. And if you listen to our segment prior to this, we talked about trusting. And I think that when in that ability, I think that being rebirthed, I'm talking from a spiritual perspective for people who don't even know who Christ is, that comes by the ones that have already given birth in the spiritual realm, that's able to come up and to bring up and to share what you need to share with that unbeliever. I believe they will come back, or even the ones that have not, have just kind of fallen away, that
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to come back to where they once was. That God will be able to rebirth them back into where they were and even better. But I think that comes all about as a non-believer. How can we get that to happen? It's just about talking to them, giving them encouraging words. And sometimes unbelievers don't want to always hear that, especially if they're going through a certain circumstance. But I think in that rebirth state, that they can then come back and be greater than once they were.
I like that. I like that. So I have another question for you. So in the process of rebirth, do you think the pains are the same?
Whew. Sometimes the pains can be greater.
Ah.
It can be greater. Because if you are, oh my, if you in that rebirthing state, that pain become intensity because you want to do better, or you want to be able to learn, or you want to be able to do this, and although you are trying to deflate that, God, that birthing place that you at could be stronger and stronger, so that you can be able to have what you need to have in that moment. That's a good question. What do you think about
I mean, honestly, and I thought about whether or not what brought that question was I remember um, a couple of years ago. This is seriously a sensitive topic, and I'm trying my best not to shed a tear. I'm gonna hold it together. But the only way we can allow others to trust us and to show them that this is a safe space is if we're able to show the level of transparency that we talk about.
that?
I
Absolutely.
remember a couple of years ago when uh, I was having trouble with my son, and the the situation where he just literally flipped out on me, and I was like, okay, this is not my child. I don't know what's happening right now, but God, I need you to fix it. And it was funny that we talked about uh, Hannah and how she literally prayed and was like, okay, God, if you just give me a son. I'll give him back to you. Because it was in that very moment when I felt like my son had just lost his mind and I was ready to send him to Jesus, but I didn't want to go to jail. I was ready to send him to Jesus. And I was like, okay, so I can't kill him
Mhm.
because that would be like totally illegal. Y'all, I really didn't want to kill my son. But it was like, this is not my child. And I remember when I called you and I talked talked about the situation and we talked through it, I was like, okay, I gotta do something different. So I remembered the prayer. Remember when I told you, I was like, okay, so if Hannah could pray for God to give her a son, why can't I pray to God to save mine?
Oh, yes. Oh,
So
yes.
that was literally that situation where it's like, okay, God, if you just hear my prayer, God, give me a son. Remember your maidservant and give me a son, God. I'll give him back to you, and I'll never cut his hair. I remember the prayer that I prayed, and I was like, okay, God, if you just save my son, I'll give him back to you. I won't send him to you right now, but I'll give him back to you, and you can keep him because right now, God, if you don't save him, I'm just gonna give him to you because I'm gonna kill him. And
Yes.
that was literally how angry I was, not literally to the point where I was going to kill my child, but it was like, okay, God, if you don't step in and intervene, I'm going to lose him. And it's
Yes.
not that I was going to lose him by my own hand, but on the path that he was on, the streets was about to take him. And I was like, okay, God, I had to remind myself, God, you did it for Hannah. And granted, my baby is already here. He's already walking the earth. And God, I gave him to you once, but God, I need you to take him back again.
Yes.
And whether or
That,
not he cut his hair, that's on him, God. He grown. The two of y'all can handle it. But as a mother, I need you to hear my heart, God. Hear my prayer. Hear my prayer. It's something about the well of a mother
mm,
that can just take it to a whole nother level.
yes. That's so good. Well, I want to encourage the people out there that's listening to us is that although there is things that you want to give birth to, especially from a physical perspective, understand that God knows. He knows your heart. He knows your mind. He knows your spirit. And if you just keep holding on to his unchanging hands, he will
Hmm.
get what you need when you need it, right where you are.
That was good.
That
Guys,
was
that is a perfect place for us to hang our hat this evening. I don't know when we start hanging hats, but we going to roll with it. So, everybody remember this is a safe space for you to share your story, share your testimony, for you to vent, tell us why you feel the way you feel. And just keep in mind, everybody, we are just somebody trying to tell everybody about one body who can save everybody.
goodbye.